Welcome to the Confidence in Singing podcast, where you can reclaim your voice and rediscover the joy of singing. I'm Aideen, and my guests include singers and voice experts who share their insights and journey to encourage singing for health, happiness, and fun. To support this podcast and join the Confidence in Singing community, just click on the Patreon link below. Welcome everyone to the podcast today. My guest is Calodagh McCumiskey. You're very welcome, Calodagh. Thank you for joining us.
Delighted to be here, Aideen. Thank you.
Let me introduce my audience to what you do and let them know what your speciality is. So Calodagh, well, first of all, Calodagh is a dear friend of mine and has been a mentor and teacher of mine for many years. And I believe that my success within confidence in singing and my personal growth has been hugely supported by you, Calodagh. So I'm delighted to have you here. You're not a singer, so maybe I should say that out straight so that people don't get the idea, because this today's podcast is really going to be addressing about the voice more in general and about sound and vibration. It's going to be really interesting, and we're going to find out a little bit about Calodagh and her story around her own voice. So let me just tell you a little bit about it first before we get carried away. So Calodagh McCumiskey is an accredited thought leader in wellbeing, a life coach and meditation teacher. She is the founder and director of Spiritual Earth, and their wellbeing programs help people to find balance, peace, happiness and success. Calodah's work is driven by her belief that when people are well, they do well. She also writes a weekly column on wellbeing for the Wexford People and other regional publications around Ireland, and has been featured on RTE's Nationwide. That's the main TV station in Ireland here. And she's also a Vedic astrologer. So tell us a little bit about your journey to finding your voice, Calodagh. Where did it all start? I mean, when it comes to sound and singing, I know that you did have that around you a little bit when you were younger in school. I remember you telling me that you had a lot of, you went to an Irish school, right?
That's right. And I would have had a lot of friends. And my dad was also a good singer. He didn't sing often, but he had an excellent voice. And he was the one person in the family that I suppose we had the view that he could sing and the rest of us couldn't. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the way sometimes people have that limiting perception of themselves. So I would have had that. And there were some amazing singers around me in school, people singing different traditional Irish styles of music, of sean-nós. I'm sure you're familiar with them, right? But really, really beautiful voices, a lot of traditional Irish music and just a lot of music. I loved music. But I always felt that I wasn't able to sing. I had that perception of myself. But I played the piano. I had a short time of playing the piano, I think, from 7 to 8 years of age. And then I also played the guitar as well, right? But I suppose they weren't fully my thing either, although I did enjoy them.
Yeah, it's interesting how in families one person can be kind of elevated as the singer and everyone else feels, oh, I better not then because I'm not as good or something. But what do you feel has helped you to find your voice in general then? So you don't consider yourself a singer even now, but I know you use your voice a lot for your work.
So I do a lot of training or teaching or speaking, and I also teach mantra meditation. And I suppose for me, it's through mantra meditation that I found my own voice. So I met somebody in Ireland 12 years ago, and he introduced me. At the time, I was just early days in meditating, and I was just doing silent meditation and a little bit of guided meditation. And I had just come out of a very stressful period of my life, and I was very stressed within myself. And I just, I kind of was going around the place, and I had this idea that meditation would help me. So I sought out a few different teachers and places where I could learn different styles of meditation. And then I met somebody who introduced me to the mantra. And, from the first time I walked into a class, I just felt I felt it was strange, but I felt a sense of belonging and a sense of longing when I started hearing those and making and chanting those sacred sounds. So when I started off, I was a little bit shy. I was living with my mother in Ireland at the time. I'd had lived overseas, but I was just helping her out at home. She had become sick, and I'd taken a little bit of a career break to help her out. And I'd be afraid to chant in the shower with lots of noise between me and her and several rooms. Whereas now, obviously, I do it for a living, and I do it a lot online and in all sorts of forums, But I was shy around my voice. And even in public speaking, I would have been shy. Yeah, I would be well able to ask a question in a smaller group, but if it came to a bigger group, I would get very nervous, very anxious. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But somehow the mantra just connects you to your inner voice. Yeah. And then you get comfortable with that sound, and it just helps you access deeper parts of yourself. Somehow.
So for people who don't understand what mantras are, how would you explain them to someone who's never done a mantra before?
Okay, so it's just a sacred sound. It's a mystical energy in the form of a sound. So you chant these different Sanskrit syllables, and what they do is they connect with your chakras, if you know about the energy body. And I suppose what happens is the different sounds, they clean your chakra system. So they help you just lighten your load, help you let go of stress, trauma, baggage, all types of anxiety, and it sounds extraordinary. And if I heard what I was saying, 13 years ago before I chanted myself, I would be a bit skeptical. But I've been practicing it on a daily basis since I started, and I've seen a lot of magic happen in my own and in other people's lives. But so it's an ancient practice from thousands of years ago, and there's different mantra meditations in many spiritual traditions. Like in Christianity, you have mantras; in Islam, you have mantras, and I'm sure in many, many other traditions, in Buddhism, Hinduism, there's different sacred sounds. And what they do is they work on the level of your chakras, yeah. And I suppose also just the voice. There's so many studies, there's so many scientific studies on voice. On showing and proving, how singing and just makes you feel good.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, breathing, I think, is a part of that, isn't it?
Breathing would be a part of the mantra, because actually it's almost a workout for your breathing system. I've had people come to my classes who are quite fitness conscious and who would compete in different races, and they would say that they would actually improve their fitness just by chanting. Because what happens is, you're trying to catch your breath, or you're trying to get enough oxygen between the mantras. So it's a workout for your breathing system. And when you're chanting quite quickly, you can almost feel like, it's very energizing, and it's like a mini workout.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I've experienced that myself. It's an area of interest for me with my singers, is how to relax. How to have a relaxed breathing, because when we're performing and when we sing, often what we do is we take this big gasp of breath before we start. And when you're doing the mantras, it's because nobody else is really involved and it's not a performance, you can get into a rhythm with your breathing that I think is a great training for someone who wants to sing.
And you have to get into a rhythm, because very often when you're chanting, you're trying to achieve a certain number of mantras, yeah? So you start getting quite good at chanting them quite quickly if you want to do 1,000 of something or whatever. It's amazing how we work. And, you say you can get it down, you can fine tune it, that you'll do, and your body will just naturally adapt to that. And you'll do every 8 mantras or 10 mantras or 3 mantras, depending on the length of it. You'll kind of just catch a small breath and bring it deeply within, and it's almost imperceptible, because you don't want to break the rhythm of your chanting. So you learn how to just take short breaths and to catch the breath in between, so that there isn't a break, so there's a continuous flow in your chanting.
It's actually a really interesting thing to try. And I know from, because I teach mantras now a little myself, and I find sometimes, it catches people out when you go that little bit faster, because it isn't just the breath that has to speed up, it's the speed of the words and the articulation. We talk a bit about this in my singing classes about, your tongue being relaxed and your jaw and things like that. So it's going to actually have an effect on all of that over, the more you're doing it, the more your body's going to adjust to the speed that you're going, and to find some ease within that.
Yeah, all of those things happen. So the chanting affects you at the level of the mind, the body, and the soul. So it calms the mind. And I would say that for myself, it's through, it seems like a contradiction, but it's through chanting the sound that I found silence within. And you can see that also with singers. Sometimes you see somebody singing and their mind is one pointed. They're so connected to just one feeling or one emotion as they sing, that the voice just has a way of connecting us deeply within, but it also connects us with the world around us, because we're touched by other people's voices. Sometimes if I hear somebody else chanting, I'll feel so touched, or singing. Yeah, it's such an incredible connector on all levels, inwards and outwards.
Absolutely. And sometimes at the end of a song, you'll have that moment where you feel a vibration, or the energy of that song is still lingering within the silence. And there can be a lot of beauty in that. But everybody's voice is very different. And Calodagh, I know a lot of people who listen to the programme, to the show, they actually maybe don't have much faith in their own voice, or they feel that their voice isn't good enough to, whether it's at home on their own or in front of other people. Maybe they'd never consider singing for other people or anything like that. What would you say to someone at that stage?
What I would just say is to get comfortable with your own voice, yeah? Even whether you're sitting in your bedroom by yourself, practice. And just, practice makes progress. And to just really get comfortable with your own voice, pronouncing loudly, quietly, in different ways, so that you can fully express yourself in all situations. And it's not about having the perfect voice, it's about having the best voice that suits you. And I know myself, I'm attracted by lots of different types of voices, but what attracts me most is when somebody's really singing from the heart. It's not about a perfect pitch or anything like that. It's that they're really into it. They're bringing themselves, they're showing up in it. And I think that's the most important thing, is to show up for yourself. And if you keep doing that, you'll get better at it. And then obviously it's really good to have support of people like you as well. Somebody that can help guide you and help you hit the right notes and give you another perspective and help you overcome the things that you'd like to improve on, in an independent way, and give you some quick techniques, right? But so I think from the self, it's the starting point is to just sing your heart out, and practice that and get comfortable with that. And then also sometimes I think when you're starting something like singing, if you have a lot of limiting beliefs around your singing, it'll take a while for you to access that good voice. It's like when you're drilling for water or for oil. Initially you come to the dirty water, the dirty oil, and it's the same with finding that voice inside of you. It takes a bit of drilling, it takes a bit of practice for you to find what sound, maybe what songs, what genre, everything that suits you. But a lot of it is just about getting rid of the fog, getting rid of the confusion, getting rid of the criticism of yourself, and then just being yourself. And as I said, the outside help is really invaluable.
Absolutely. And I like what you said about, finding yourself and being yourself. I think I'd love to hear a little bit more about, from your perspective and from your training, as a, in the Vedic, astrology, or even the yoga side of things, because I know you've studied that as well, about, how to connect with that deeper part of ourselves, where your heart is the part that's singing, and that is the thing that carries you through, and that you can deliver a message maybe of something that you care about, whether it's something that you need to talk about within a work environment or anything, or if you're applying it to singing as well. But what process do you think is what people need to go on in order to find that truth within them, that authentic self?
I suppose it's the journey of the lifetime, isn't it, for all of us on some level, right? But I think that modern life poses a lot of challenges for connecting from the heart because of all these technology and devices and phones and all of that, computers. A lot of that brings us into our head, Yeah. Texting, busyness, weapons of mass distraction. There's so many of them. So we all need a counterbalance. So I would say first and foremost, it's so important to just be able to switch off on a daily basis. Yeah. To really to disconnect from everything and to just connect within. Yeah. And to not be focused on anything outside, to clear your mind. I think meditation is a great tool to clear your mind, to have your mind not necessarily empty, but that there's no burdens. You're not trying to fix anything. You're not trying to sort anything. You're not trying to solve anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, we've lost that. A lot of people don't actually relax in modern life. They engage in different types of distractions, but they don't actually relax or slow down. And I think if we slow down regularly, not just, once a week or whatever, but find ways of slowing down and closing. I call it closing the files when I'm doing kind of corporate wellbeing programs, just finding a way of closing the files, not just at the end of the day, but even throughout the day for 1 or 2 minutes. I'm a big advocate of that, because then what happens is that you're always connected to yourself. Yeah. And you have an early warning system, when you're in situations that are working for you, if something is bothering you. Yeah. Because sometimes, years ago before I meditated, I wasn't even aware if I was unsettled. Yeah. At the end of the day or at the end of the week, might be saying to myself, why did I say that or do that? But I didn't have that wherewithal to actually know at the time. There might be an instinct, but I wasn't fully connected. So I think we have to know what's going on inside and not have so much outer focus. And there's lots of, so things like spending time in nature is invaluable. Things like yogic exercises, because what happens when we practice yoga, we coordinate the movement of the body and the breath. And what happens is the mind, the body and the breath, when they're in the one place, in yoga we say when the mind and the body are in the one place, the breath is the bridge to the soul, to the heart, to what's happening deepest inside of you.
Can you say that again? I just feel like there's a big gem into what you just said. Can you just say that bit again?
So when the mind and the body are in the one place, the breath is the bridge to the soul, right? So
the breath is the bridge to the soul. Is that, do you mean that people should actually think about their breath?
You'll think about your breath, but that it will actually just take you there as a vehicle when your mind and your body are together. Yeah. So if I'm doing a yoga movement or even just a breathing, so my mind and my body are together. So I'm lifting my arms up in the air and there's a full coordination. That way there's no room for other thoughts. I'm fully present in what I'm doing. Yeah.
Like the power of now.
The power of now, right? So when I'm fully present in what I'm doing, what'll happen is your breath will take you more deeply within. It'll connect you to your soul, to your heart, to what's deepest inside of you. And that will also enable you to access higher realms within your meditation, blissful places, etc., etc. Depending on your belief system and the type of practice that you're doing. But it connects you to this just place of inner silence. And it connects you to that place where you can more easily access your gifts, your talents, where you know what's good for you and you have the access to that place. And what you said earlier was very interesting around the singing, that it's often through the pauses. Yeah, the pause, a well-timed pause is as powerful as a sound.
Yes.
Yeah? All of that, and that's also through the breath as well, that people are taking us to these incredible places of feeling and connection.
Yeah, I think that everyone's in action mode and we are afraid to stop for a moment. We think everything could fall apart sometimes if we stop. Certainly if you're singing and you're singing for other people, the more you get into that moment, the better that communication will happen. The more I'm here, and the more I actually really focus on the message in the song or the visuals of the song and really meaning each word that I say, then it's like there's a power in that. And I'm less conscious when I'm thinking about the message of a song or what I'm saying, rather than the person saying it. So there's definitely a perspective shift there it's almost like dragging yourself into the moment, like gathering up the things that are dragging you away. And some of those things are those limiting beliefs, like, oh, no, I don't deserve to be here. Or sometimes we can get distracted by stupid things, like, I mean, my heels are too high, and if I don't feel comfortable in what I'm wearing, or to be able to really perform. For those of you who want to do that, you have to become so. It's almost like you have to embody the song and embody what you're saying.
But if you look at people who are very impactful when they're interviewed, really, really strong speakers, they're fully present. They're charismatic because they show up.
Yes,
they're there. They're there in their bodies. They're there, mind, body, heart, soul. They're fully present in everything they do. And I think there's a Harvard study, and it says the average person is present only 50% of the time, 52% of the time. So that's mentally present also. That doesn't account for, how much time people are engaged or heartfully there or emotionally there.
Yeah.
Right? So, there's huge scope for all of us to be more present when we sing or in any of the activities that we participate on a daily basis. And when you're connected, that's when you touch people. And it's about being connected and in the moment, but not in a burdensome way, not feeling there's no pressure. You're just in it. There's a book, they talk about being in flow. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the kind of state we're trying to achieve in anything, because when you're in flow, it almost feels effortless. But a lot of work in singing, I would imagine, has to happen before you can get fully into flow, to do it to a high quality.
Completely.
Yes.
It's like learning to drive a car. Like so many of us now, we drive our cars and we can enjoy driving, many of us. But when you're learning, so for the beginner singer, or for someone who's not really, doesn't consider themselves a singer, that process of, learning to coordinate your voice and the words and listening to someone else play or a backing track can be very, it can take an awful lot of concentration initially. And by doing it regularly, then it becomes something that becomes more unconscious or automatic, the same way as after 4 or 5 months of driving, that you very rarely need to think about using the clutch or whether to look at the mirror or not. You're kind of doing all those things without thinking. So it does take time. So to find a flow state in a skill is going to take longer than to, say, find a flow state maybe in something like sitting in the back garden listening to the birds. So there's the access point, I think, for that presence might be, you might find that easier to access in a simpler task.
Absolutely. But that flow happens only when we're just in it, and there's no other perception of, there's no questioning of being in it or judging yourself, etc., that you're just in it, and your mind and your heart are fully engaged in what you're actually doing.
Lovely. Yeah. Now, I know for myself, there was a bit of a kind of a healing journey to being fully, to finding peace with myself, because that's when you're being present, then it's just you're there, and you've got this situation or whatever nice place that you're in that you're trying to experience. But it really is a journey, and was for me anyway, of self-acceptance, to be in a moment and not have a million other things that I should be doing. Or, what would you say to people around that side of, kind of the self-acceptance part?
It's the hardest thing for any of us to do, In meditation, we have this word being grounded, yeah? And supposed to be grounded means that you fully accept yourself and your life. Yeah, when you're fully grounded, or I suppose that's in a state where because we can be temporarily grounded. I can be sitting in the back garden, life is good, and I'm present. Yeah, but what happens when a problem comes. Yeah. Am I at peace with that, or am I at ease with that, or am I unsettled by that? But I would say, I often joke with my students and I say it took me about 3 years of meditating to actually really understand what the word grounding meant. But what it simply means is when we just accept ourselves and everything that's happened in our life to date. We don't necessarily have to agree with it, but we're not fighting with it anymore. We're here and we're interested in moving forward and being present. And we're not pulled by the past. We're not pulled by situations or people that we might encounter. So you could walk down the street of Wexford or, New York or Dublin and meet anybody from your past and present and feel okay about it.
You won't be crossing the street to get away from anyone.
Yeah, that you might be touched by meeting people, but you're not going to be pulled out of your socket, as it were, right?
Okay.
So it's a huge journey. It's a huge journey to get to that point of full acceptance. We can be in a state of acceptance, but if you can be pulled out of it, it's only temporary. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I suppose it's a daily, what I feel about acceptance is that it's a daily work on yourself. It's like, sometimes people come to me because they want to learn meditation, and you say, why? And they say, I just want to be peaceful. But to be peaceful takes a lot of work because it makes you have to kind of take action around certain things. You have to have conversations about other things, and you have to let other things go. You have to accept other people. Mm-hmm. But it's a critical thing, because until we get to the point of acceptance, there'll always be a war going on in your head. Yeah, so it's really, really vital. If I'm not accepting something, what's happening is I'm bringing conflict into my mind-body complex. So it's so crucial. It's so crucial for our peace, for our growth, for our development, that we can work on ourselves. And it just takes time,
Yeah.
It takes time. And sometimes new challenges come, there's different chapters in our life, there's different phases in our life, and life can be good. And then, a new dimension comes, and then that upends things, and then you have to work through those things with yourself. But I suppose that's why we're here, and that's part of the fun of the journey.
Absolutely. I always feel like being grounded is probably one of the biggest things that I've had to work on. I was always a bit of a scatty, all over the place, very fun to be around, but I never really achieved a lot because I was very quick to change course. I would change my mind about things, and I would get frustrated easily, and definitely meditation has helped me with that. And for me, for self-acceptance, I had a big portion of that was self-forgiveness. And it was when I went to India, through the meditation group I was in, and I met the teacher there. You were allowed to ask for something, and the thing I asked for was to be able, for almost like the grace to be able to forgive myself, because I had done the craziest things. I had a lot of fair weather friends. I had wasted time. I had wasted money. I'd wasted my talents in the wrong work. Wrong relationships, and when you look back, especially, as we get a little bit older, we start to realize I could have done a lot better, but you can't hold yourself to ransom for those things. You have to be able to accept them and kind of go, okay, well, whatever it was I had to learn from, now I'm moving forward. And when we're learning a new skill, there's definitely a phase as well where we need to forgive the little mistakes we make along the way, because that's where you figure it out,
Yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying, and maybe two different ways of saying the same thing is that when we feel guilt and shame, the parts of the brain that are responsible for growth and learning shut down. Yeah. So it's totally counterproductive, to hold things against yourself. Yeah. Because what happens is we're less likely to change behavior. We're less likely to learn the lesson. We block ourselves from doing that when we're hard on ourselves, mm-hmm. unnecessarily. Yeah. So it's, I I suppose one of the benefits, one of the biggest benefits of meditation for me is that if I'm going down a wrong road, I'm able to get out of the cul-de-sac quicker, right? And part of that is just a wrong choice, or I thought it might work like this. But part of that is the baggage, the guilt that you bring around stuff, you know, and the questioning and the anxiety that you'll make up around something. But I'm just much quicker to not engage in that. Once I notice that, I don't want to, this isn't where I need to go. I'm just out the door and then I'm moving forward. And, you know, as children, they say it takes a child 4,000 attempts to sit up straight. 4,000 attempts. But as adults, you know, one of the things that is so ridiculous is that we often expect ourselves to do something perfectly first shot, you know, and when we don't, we give up and we think, I'm not good at this, you know. But nobody's born a great singer. Nobody's born a great anything, you know. People, it's practice, yes. And definitely one of the things that astrology has really taught me actually is that there's different seasons in our life. Yeah, there's different phases at which talents or areas of our life get activated, or where the spotlight goes. Yeah, so some people are born to shine, you know, earlier, and some people are born to shine later. Yeah, that's just how it is. Some of us have a longer journey to get to a place, and some of us have a shorter journey, or it looks like that. Yeah. But it's not about, it's about just being on your journey and being on the journey about where you want to go and moving forward. It's not about how fast you're getting there. You know, it's the journey, not the destination, that's really most important in life.
Mm-hmm. And to avoid that comparative thinking where you're imagining that if you'd done things differently, where would you be now? Or, you know, if you were like so-and-so, or they are doing something, and how come you haven't been able to do that?
There's no, I fully agree. And my teacher, one of the things that I often hear him saying, you know, the way when you have somebody like that, you hear their voice in your head. And one of the things that he shared with me, and that really struck me around comparison, is that there's actually no benefit to comparison. The only benefit to comparison is if you like the way somebody makes cakes or something like that, or sings, that you might say, I really like the way they move their voice, or the way they access that, or the way they design that cake, and that you take things and you improve yourself. But the only real comparison, and in yoga we also learn this, the only real comparison is me yesterday. It's not me, it's not anybody else. It's, can I be better than who I was yesterday? Can I do more practice? Can I push myself a little bit harder than I did yesterday? Obviously, based on whether you're well. Sometimes people can also be really hard on themselves when their energy levels are low. That's not reasonable. Yeah. You know, if you're sick or you're not well.
Absolutely. There's an analogy that you've said in classes a number of times before that I think really struck me, which is sometimes when the weather is good, it's almost like making hay, but when the weather is good and things are going well, you can make progress. But sometimes success is standing strong in the middle of a storm.
Yeah, sometimes, exactly. So like if you have the wind behind you pushing you forward and the weather's fine, it's easy to move forward. But sometimes, if the wind is against you, by even standing still, that you're actually making more progress.
Yes.
Yeah. And in life, it's never really about the efforts. This is also something I've learned from astrology, because you can see when people are in times of adversity, or when they're in times where it's fine weather and life is favoring them, or life is easier, life is more charming and kind. But at the end of the day, it's about the efforts that we make. Yeah. You know, and I met a very brilliant mentor a number of years back, and one of the questions he used to ask of himself and anybody he worked with was, how hard did I try today? And that's a really powerful question, and he would rate himself out of 10 in a few different areas, because very often we're often thinking about how hard I tried last week or last month, but how hard did I try today? Yeah.
So it's almost like having a standard for yourself, But like
and
that, you have
and
to be
just
careful of being too hard on yourself as well, isn't it? There's a balance there to be had.
absolutely, but it's just about showing up for whatever it is you want on a daily basis, and none of that negative giving out to yourself. Yeah, the past is over, right? And yeah, that um, when we're so hard on ourselves, like for many years of my life, I couldn't actually assess myself or see myself properly because I would either be too hard on myself or too easy on myself. I didn't actually see myself as I was, you know? So I would kind of gloss over my lack of whatever, or I would be really, really hard on myself. And neither of those positions are helpful. It's just about, you know, doing, showing up, really. I think it's about showing up and moving
Yeah.
forward at whatever pace you're ready to do that day. And sometimes, as you say, even standing still in adverse times is huge progress.
Wonderful. I'd love to hear if you have any practical advice, you know, for someone who's listening that maybe wants to connect more deeply with that deeper side of themselves or practice being in the moment. Do you have anything that you say to your students that people can use on a daily basis?
What we could do is we could do a short 1 minute breathing practice if you'd like,
Yes,
Aideen.
that would be
Yeah?
fantastic.
Okay. Okay. So I do this with lots of people, okay? So what I would just say is close your eyes, put one hand on your stomach and one on your chest. And I want you to just focus on the feeling of your tummy rising and falling as you breathe in and out. And this is a close the files relaxation breathing practice. So just focusing on the feeling of your tummy rising and falling as you breathe in and out. And if your mind is still busy, trying to solve this or that, or on autopilot doing what it always does, give it a job. And the job that you're going to give your mind is to say in your mind as you breathe in, I am breathing in. And as you breathe out, I am breathing out. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. So all the time breathing in and out according to the natural rhythm of your breath. And if your mind wanders, as soon as you notice it's going somewhere else, just bring it back to the feeling of the tummy rising and falling. And again, giving it that job, I am breathing in. I am breathing out. And just notice if your mind slowed down, or maybe you even fully focused. But it should be less busy than it normally is. Okay, so whenever you feel ready, just come back to your room, come back to the room and open your eyes.
I feel
I've had
great
really
after
good, so I call it a close the files breathing practice, and I've had really good results, or I've seen amazing results. It works for me, but I've seen many people just be able to sleep better, be a lot more productive, be more creative, because you bring a fresh perspective to whatever it is you're doing. You know, in so many cases, what we do is when the mind is always busy, we bring yesterday's problems, we bring last week's problems, last month's problems into today, and we never clear our head. Imagine if you had a desk and you had 20 files open, and if you want, like if somebody's going on stage or somebody's singing or practicing singing, if you can, you know, disengage from whatever's happened earlier that day and just show up there for the song and your voice, it could really help it being more powerful. So you're not affected by limiting beliefs or what happened earlier.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. And thank you so much, Clodagh, for that breathing exercise. So we'll try and remember this one, everyone. to put your hand on your tummy and on your chest and just focusing on the rising and falling of the breath. And then to give your mind that job. I am breathing in, I am breathing out, and just sit with that for about a minute. And I certainly felt a shift, and physically I felt more relaxed as well.
And what I often say to people is a minute, 2 minutes, but just do it for whatever number of breaths it takes for you to disengage. So that could be 10 breaths, 12 breaths, for you to close your files so that you're fully in it.
It's beautiful.
In the practice.
That's wonderful, Calodagh. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. I would love to let people know how they can connect with you. What ways are you available for people to connect with on the internet, or what would you suggest to people listening?
Okay, well, I love hearing from different people from all over the world. I've lived in lots of different countries, so I love interacting with different people. So I have 2 websites. One is spiritualearth.com, and the other one is calodaghastrology.com. And I have newsletters and I have emails on both of those websites. So I'd be delighted to hear from anybody if you want to get in touch and ask questions or share and compare stories.
Absolutely. And I can attest to Calodagh's skill as a mentor and life coach. So if that's something that any of our listeners are interested in or need on their journey to finding their voice, I would highly recommend it. And take that next step, everybody. Sometimes we know a next step that you need to take that may be completely unrelated to either of us, and start today. Thank you so much, Calodagh.
Yeah, can I just say a big thank you to you for inviting me? It's been a big honor to be on the podcast today, and keep up the amazing work that you're doing and keep shining your light. And thank you.
Thank you, Calodagh. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.